Mini episode 1153 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Welcome, everyone, to FDH Lounge mini episode number 1153. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris coming at you. And one of the things we love to do every year is get ready for the start of a new sports season. In this case, it is the NHL season of 2019/2020. And here, as always, for such purposes, is good friend, FDH Lounge Dignitary and Sportsology proprietor and author, good friend Russ Cohen. And coming at us, actually fittingly enough, from a rink as we are recording this today. Russ, good to have you back on, my man. Thank you for being here for the season preview.
Anytime, Rick. Always look forward to it.
It's very good to be able to break this down with you, and what we've got going on here is a very interesting landscape in the league since we ended the last regular season. It ends, of course, with the St. Louis Blues hoisting their first ever Stanley Cup, mercifully dispatching a team from Boston, which is always nice for the rest of the country to see, regardless of sport. And again, a very, very, very memorable playoff run last year. And then we get to the off season, and there's a number of developments happening. Columbus is stripped to the bones by free agency as anticipated. Relative labor peace at the moment, or at least about as close as we ever get. A couple of different things there. What really jumped out at you as the biggest headlines of the off season?
Well, the labor piece was a big one, and they overcame that hurdle quick. So some people say, well, in 3 years we'll be right back where we were, but it's like, yeah, 3 years is a long time for it. So I'm not worried about that. I think, yeah, the RFAs, because a lot of those unsigned players really dragged on until the last couple of weeks. And now Julius Honka of Dallas Stars is the last man standing because he asked for a trade. And so he's the one guy. So, like last year with William Nylander and the holdout, it really did hurt his season. Seems to have hurt the Leafs because he didn't get there to what, like middle of October or something like that.
That's right.
And it kind of threw him off kilter. So at least nobody did that this year. But it was a big story because, you know, it did. I'm guessing it did foul up some teams' plan while they're waiting. Guys, you know, they couldn't spend all their money. They had to keep a certain amount allotted. You never know the exact amount because they're negotiating down to the last minute. So all the big ones are out of the way. Some of these guys did miss camp. All the top players can't, but they missed time. And so you kind of wonder if some of them will be rusty for the first 3 or 4. Certainly that in the NFL. That in your Cleveland Browns, actually. But
yes.
You don't really,
sadly,
you don't really want that.
No. Well, it's an interesting kind of thing because, again, you mentioned that with the NFL. That is something where Sean McVay had sort of brought that to the NFL, and it didn't seem to hamper the LA Rams. And again, we're finding out that some other teams in the NFL, it is hampering with that, particularly when you're putting in new concepts. And I would think particularly in the NHL that the teams that are going to be changing offensive systems, maybe have new coaching, whatever, I would think they're a little bit more vulnerable to whatever's going to happen with these guys not being there in training camp.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why they'll put a lot of pressure on Travis Neck to get him and the coach there. He was in their system, and they got it done, and that worked him in Pro Bowl. So, yeah, overall, good. Guys are in camp. Now it's sort of the last games are being played, the last preseason one. See by the writers' tweet, they're going to be happy to see preseason go. They're getting grumpy already. And, but, you know, in Pittsburgh here, there's a big story because I went to the game a couple nights ago against Detroit, and, you know, Crosby played in that game, and they had him play again yesterday, and he took a shot off the wrist, and he left the game, and now there was, you know, talk that he could have a broken wrist. And I guess we'll find that out today, but the idea is, why is Crosby in, like, your last preseason game? Why?
That's a very good question, and again, something that really sets back a team that has been getting thinner and thinner the last couple of years since their last championship that they won. Let's start there, I guess, in the Metro, because when I look at it, there are two divisions this year that really, really jump out at me as being very, very shallow. I think Pittsburgh, they're going to have a lot of problems if Crosby's down for a good period of time, but if he's in there, I think you could pretty much pencil them in for a playoff spot, and I would think fairly likely home ice in the first round. You have the Islanders, who, again, did it with the goaltending that they had a year ago, really kind of snuck up on everybody. We'll see if they can replicate that. A down year that people really didn't, a lot of people anyways, myself included, didn't see coming for the Devils. You had Jack Hughes in there. We'll see what happens with the Rangers. Obviously some nice off-season moves here, bolstering both their offense and their defense, but you still have aging goaltending at this point. And again, we talked before about Columbus getting stripped by free agency. Philadelphia is still kind of retooling, so I see an awful lot of question marks in that division right now. Carolina, we'll have to see if they, like the Islanders, kind of snuck up on some people a year ago. We'll have to see if they can get it done. If I'm Washington, if I'm Pittsburgh with Crosby, I'm really liking where I'm at right now. So what do you think about the rest of the division? Does it look as thin to you, or do you think they have a chance to get that fourth playoff spot out of there?
I think there's a chance. It's interesting because I think Pittsburgh could end up being like a wild card team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they'll. I think that could be where they end up. I think Washington will take the division.
Yep.
I think they're quietly healthy. They're getting this the last year. Brave Holtby. They have to figure out what they're doing with him. Sonoff becomes the guy next year. So there's that. So you're dealing with that. And Ovechkin may be only in the league 2 more years. We'll see. I mean, his contract's coming up, and he might end up going to the KHL. So I think they're motivated to try and get this done, and I think there's a really good chance. So I think they're the class of the division, and then you have the Pittsburgh, Islanders, Rangers, Flyers, Devils, and Carolina's in there too, but I don't trust either Mrazek for Carolina in gold.
Right.
And so that, to me, that's an issue. So then it's like, I wonder if that gets derail part of their season, because they had done a lot of good things there. But they had goaltending Kim Terrell. The Rangers have good goaltending, but they're a little weak in the center position. Looks like Ryan Strome, maybe their second line center, which is a little weak. But other than that, they've added Kravtsov, they've added Adam Fong, they've added Apokako, and Artemi Panarin. So they've added offense, defense, offensive defensemen. So they're going to be a lot better than last year. And so if Bush is anything, I think he will be, and either Georgiev or Shesterkin, if for some reason comes out of camp and they decide they're going to use him, do something with Georgiev. Either way, they're set in goal. They're in better shape in goal than Carolina and Devils, because Devils, have Blackwood, they have Schneider. Unless Schneider can really pick it up, because last year it was awful.
Right.
And Blackwood's pretty good, but he's a young developing goal, so I don't know where they're at in goal, but the Rangers do a better goaltending than all of them. And then you say Philly, and there's high expectations for Carter Harper in the second season. Like, you don't know when you start a season on flat-footed and you're young like that, will have the same magic. He did preseason, but you don't know if it'll be the regular season. So you look at that, and that's really going to make the difference, I think, is goaltending, because, even New Jersey, I love what they did. Subban, Jack Hughes, Wade, so that's going to help them. There's no question in my mind. But, again, to what degree? How much is it? If the goaltending sort of derailing them, then they could have a problem. So I think Washington's a lock, Pittsburgh's a lock, and then there's a bunch of suit there. We're going to have to sort of see what happens with all of them. And, Flyers brought in Niskanen, they brought in Braun, so they basically fortified the blue line. And, Konecny just got re-signed. He'll be there on the top line, and maybe Joel Barabee makes the team, maybe he doesn't. They may even sign Chris Stewart, because Alain Vigneault needs to run that ultimate fourth line. So Chris Stewart may make the team, at least to start. The Flyers are in a weird spot because, they're in Switzerland now. They play a game tomorrow. Today. No, it's tomorrow. They play tomorrow, and then after that, they go to Prague, and they have a game in the Czech Republic. And then they come home, and then I think they go to, New Jersey, and then they go out to the West Coast. Something wacky like that. And so you look at that and you say, maybe they have a roster that's strictly for the next 4 or 5 days, and then it could change after that. So, Stewart could make the opening roster, or maybe if things aren't going well, that, in the game in Prague, they have a fight or something to entertain the crowd. Stewart maybe plays a couple more games while they're on the West Coast, and then they might start to make change. It could happen that way for Philly. So I think things are in flux there. So the Metro is interesting, but it's definitely stronger than it was last year. I mean, nothing else. Just look at the youth that got added there. That should be instant success for all those teams, guys we talked about.
Yeah, and it'll be a matter of how that comes together and how the youth develops. As far as a team with a ready-made power structure at the top, a division that looks that way, I should say, the Atlantic Division, You've got Tampa Bay, who was the runaway President's Trophy winner of a year ago. Didn't do so well, obviously, once the playoffs started. But Tampa, Toronto, Boston, to me, it's in that order. But I think you pencil those three teams in for the playoffs, barring any type of injuries. I like Florida as a playoff team as well, with a lot of the tinkering that they did in the offseason. You've got Montreal, just perennially always seems to sort of be on the bubble no matter what their circumstances are. You've got Buffalo trying to rise up. They're about, I'd say, a year or two ahead in their rebuild of where Detroit's at. Detroit is still kind of down there, unfortunately for me as a Red Wings fan, although should be better days ahead with Stevie Y at the helm. I've got Ottawa bringing up the rear by a pretty good amount, which is, again, not much different than how the Sens have been playing in recent years. But this is a very, very difficult division, Russ Cohen, if you're a young team trying to claw up the ranks, at least right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Ottawa's got a lot of talent, and I think Brady can triple off a big year. But, yeah, they're there. I think Detroit will be the worst team in this division. I don't think they're close.
Interesting.
I look at them, and I do think, I just saw them the other night, I think Moritz Seider can make the team. I think Hirose helps them on offense. But again, they don't have enough offense. Definitely don't have enough defense. I mean, Mike Brady scored a goal in preseason when I was there, and if he's healthy, they'll trade him at the deadline. They'll get some assets. But in the interim, they just don't have enough. And Eiserman knows. And so I think Ottawa's better than them. I think Buffalo will do better than both of them. But Buffalo, there's still some worries. Now with all the trade talk about Ristolainen, will he have a good season, or is that going to affect him? Is Carter Hutton really going to provide goaltending they need? Because if not, that could derail them. They've got a lot of good players. Olsen's a good young player who I think can score 20 goals. But there's that issue there. I think Florida is a playoff too, and I think the only way they're not is if Bob gets hurt. If Bob gets hurt, James Reimer is not a suitable backup.
Right.
He's not. And we saw that when Luongo got hurt. So Bob has held him pretty much have a best year, and if he does, then yeah, I think Florida does think they do have everything else, and now they've got Quenneville, and that's a big thing. Montreal's fine, right? They're good as team, and Price is as good as you can get. Carey Price last year, I feel, after coming back from injury, he's probably going to play more games than any goalie out there. He played 6 games and he started like 65. I think he's going to do the same this year. I think the issue is something has to go wrong with some of these other teams for them to sort of be there. But I think they will be there, and I think they'll hang around. I think Buffalo has a better year. I think even Duran will play better at the end. Yeah, I think Duran will have a better second half this year. He had pretty good stats, but the second half, I don't know, he went something like 13 games with them, and that certainly hurt him. So you know Jolson's hurt against New defense, and I think that hurts him a little bit. So they could, be right up there in the 90-something points category and not enough against possible. I think Toronto is a lot. Jake Muzzin from last year, Tyson Barrie now this year. That's going to help them. Tampa's a lot. I don't know if they're starting to decline in the sense that that's why we saw what but Tampa has to really, in the next 2 years, put it up. So everything's going to blow up there. That's one time, but they're going to have chaos. So
right.
What happens there, but they're going to win the division. Boston should be fine now that they've got Logo in there and signed, but they're a team that thinks of veterans than you, and if some of their veterans get hurt, Marchand, Bergeron, Chara, they're out for any length of time. That does hurt them. Pasternak's so great. They've got young talent. They manage to support them. I like them a lot. And so I would say they're a playoff team, but it is not impossible for them to fall out of it. Where I think like Toronto is impossible for them to fall out of it. They're 2 teams. So I think you've got 2 definite, most likely 3. And then, I do think Florida could make it.
Yeah, that's how I look at it as well. I've got Florida in the playoff picture also. Moving to the other conference, let's stay with commonality here for the moment as far as a really, really brutal division. Much like the Atlantic, you've got the Central in there, and again, the defending Stanley Cup champion Blues in that division there, along with 2 teams that a lot of people, including myself, had as strong favorites to lift the cup a year ago, Nashville and Winnipeg. Nashville, of course, being a team that has been there fairly recently, back in 2017 in the finals. Winnipeg, a team that certainly has what it takes to get there as well. Dallas and Colorado stepping up a year ago. They still both look like playoff teams to me. You've got Minnesota sort of sitting there in limbo right about now. Things really haven't panned out with their big signings in recent years. Chicago trying to claw their way back up to some form of relevance here at this point. But in particular, the 5 teams in there that were playoff teams a year ago and still look like playoff teams to me make this the toughest division in hockey in my estimation.
Yeah, it's a grinder, and I kind of like Colorado to win this division, actually. They're poised. They've got youth on defense. They just added Kel McCarr, who I think will walk in seamlessly to the parted Tyson Valley, so I don't think that's an issue. I think Rivera can handle it. He's never played more than 40 games or something, but I think he can handle 50 games tonight. They have this guy, Frank, I think it's Tondo Frank, who's going to back up. Who is a real mystery. He's a Czech guy. He played in the AHL last year, like 2 NHL games, and now all of a sudden he's an NHL backup. So that'll be interesting to see if that doesn't blow up. But they have a lot of cap space, so they could possibly, well, I don't know, I haven't looked since they re-signed Rankin, so maybe they don't. But they could be a team looking for an extra goalie at the breaks. All that said, Dallas is much improved, but we always worry about the health of Ben Bishop. I think that's key. Miro Heiskanen now is probably our top 5 defenseman in the league, so you have to start looking at Dallas differently. They lost Spencer, but I don't think that's going to really hurt them because they have young guys that can help that loss. So I do think Dallas is hard to play against, and I do think they look like a playoff team. St. Louis, I think, is definitely a playoff team. I think they get Justin Falk kind of negates what could have been maybe a Stanley Cup hangover, what we see. That's adding more fresh legs on the defense, which is good because maybe Jake Bogeyster has a rough start again, and that sort of covers them for that. I have no worries about anything else for the St. Louis Blues. I don't worry about goaltending. I don't worry about anything. So if people think that Jordan Binnington is not going to have a good year, I would disagree. I think mature enough and older where I don't think he's going to have a sophomore slump. So I think they're going to Winnipeg's an issue because they've lost 3 players. Buffalo's not going to start the season no matter what. That's a big loss. And right now, John Martin is going to run that power play, and I think he does a good job, but that power play's lost 3 guys. So we have to see what the Winnipeg Jets are. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck's good in that, and they definitely have 2-3 good lines, and they just got Kyle Connor signed. But if they didn't make the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm still going to pick them in the playoffs, but there's a transition there now that they weren't expecting, and Buffalo was the last part of that. Tyler Myers is part of that too. These are big losses, so we'll have to see what happens with them. Chicago, I don't think has a chance. I think they looked good second half last year, but I still think they're missing too much and aging too much. I know they added Dylan Strome. They have some youth there. Lincoln possibly could hit 40 goals again. Wouldn't shock me if he gets a few more, but I just think their defense isn't good enough. And Robin Leonard and net, I heard he was injured. I don't know if he's going to miss any time. And Corey Crawford's always injured, so too much instability there. Minnesota is a bubble team as well. I liked them last year, and I felt like if Dumba didn't get hurt, they were probably on a good enough run to make the playoffs. Maybe it won't happen this year, but I like Ryan Donato, the addition there, and Dump is healthy, and Dubnik is an excellent goalie. Even Stalock, that tandem was very good with Dubnik and Stanley. Stalock, but they're in a tough division, so something has to happen with some of these other teams for Minnesota to be a playoff team. And look, if Eric Stahl, they have Parise, these guys can still play. Suter still plays a ton of minutes, but it's just a meat grinder in that division, so hard stuff.
Yeah, it really, really is. That division is just brutal. I will say this, though, and this
Nashville, I didn't bring up Nashville.
Yeah.
I should, because I think Pecorino will be fine. I think Dante Fabro will add a lot of defense. I have a lot of faith in Fabro. And so I do think Nashville's a playoff team, but I think this is like the last year before they change over either Saros or they just sign Rennie again short term and start to see where they're at. This is a big year for Laviolette. He's going to prove something.
It is. It's a big year for Laviolette. And I would also say, too, because I am a strong believer in Winnipeg right now, so it's a big year, I would say, also for Josh Morrissey as well, because you are absolutely right in what you're saying about the blue line there. I think he's going to step up, and I think, again, they may be a little bit of a mover at the trade deadline as well, which is sort of why I have the take that I do on them. But he's one of the people I think who's definitely on the spot in the Central Division this year.
No question. And yeah, I think Morrissey can't handle it too. It's just everything else. Just their overall. And they're going to put in guys like Sanku. They're gonna hope to replicate what Tyler Myers was able to do for them minutes and just being big on the ice. And so I don't know if Logan Stanley's going to make the team. He didn't been sent back already 6 and 7. It'd be good if he could make it, but apparently on the bubble or has already been sent back. So they're not as much of a luck as they were when they ended the season last year, in my mind.
Very interesting. We'll have to see about that. The Pacific Division, this is where I might get to what might be deemed a little bit of a hot take on my part, but when I look at the division, again, I'm just not impressed at all. I really, I look at the off seasons here. I think Calgary is still going to be strong, notwithstanding what happened to them in the first round. Vegas, they're going to be steady as always. But believe it or not, I see the third position here coming for a team in the 80s. So I think that's a thing where a team like Edmonton can possibly even get in there, because I see Edmonton as being a team that could potentially get to the mid-80s. San Jose lost a lot of depth. Arizona, Vancouver, they're still taking steps forward at this point. It's possible if they could advance into the 90s this year. Don't know if I see it. Anaheim is just in a weird place when I look at that roster. LA is just depleted, as teams are sometimes at the end of a dynastic run. So what do you think when you see the Pacific? Do you think it's as weak as I do, or do you see a little bit more strength there and potential for this year?
No, I do think it's weak. McDavid is starting to play, and we'll see what he looks like post-surgery. I'm sure it'll be fine, but what if he starts out slow? I don't know if I trust Mike Smith or Mikko Koskinen in there. That's why I don't think I can call them a playoff team, because I just don't trust those guys. Mike Smith will really have to roll back, I think, to be good. McDavid's McDavid, Draisaitl, they'll probably have enough scoring. Their defense is a little improved, but I still worry about what's your net there. So Anaheim, look, I love Gibson. I still think they have a strong defense, Cam Fowler and company there. But Dan Steele is a really good addition. He's a guy who's a high scorer in juniors, did pretty well in the AHL. I think he'll add something. I think Richie could have a better year, but I don't think they have enough either. Vancouver is interesting because Quinn is going to add a lot. Like, that's going to be one of the best power plays in the West.
Mm-hmm.
With Hughes and Pedersen, and Besser, that's pretty close. So they have scoring, and their question is going to be on defense. They added Tyler Myers. Do they have enough? Maybe. I mean, I know they used some Markstrom. I'm not sure if Demko made it as a backup or not. He may have. I think they're going to be close. They're that bubble team, and I can't put Arizona in the playoffs because now Rob is hurt again, and apparently Darcy Kempa has a slight injury, so they don't know who's starting the season for them. They're already coming out of the gate flux. They have a bunch of good young players. Don't get me wrong, and OEL and everything else, but I'm not sure if Barrett Hayton made the team, but I think he's close. But the idea is their goaltending is flux already. Like they may start to their number 3 goalie, and nobody seems to know who it is yet because they're trying to check on the health of their current guys. So I think that's a problem for them, because I felt like they need to come out of the gate strong. I like what Rick Sutter did last year. He finished strong, but they need to come out of the gate strong. I don't know if they can do that. So San Jose, Vegas, they're definitely playoff teams. The blue line in San Jose with Carlson and Burns, but that's solid to tell. They don't have Marlowe, but they brought back both. Marlowe's hanging out there, though, so you kind of wonder if there's an injury or something would that happen. But, they've Timo Meyer, LeBanc. They've got enough guys left in that defense. I think Martin Jones could be better this year. He certainly has to be. He had a bad year last year. And if he's just anything like he was 2 years ago, they're fine. Vegas, same thing, but you worry when it's going to be too much for Marc-Andre Fleury. Not old age-wise, although he's in his mid-30s, but he's played a lot. And he's going to have to play a lot again because they don't have great backup goaltenders there. So Stone was a huge addition. They certainly have a good blue line, but it's not great, but it's good. They did lose Brandstrom, so they made some deals. They lost a few guys. I think overall they're still good enough. I don't know if Cody Glass made the team or not. I was hoping for him. I still think they're a playoff team, end of the day. So, and Calgary definitely a playoff team. I have faith in Cam Talbot, probably more than, look, in Philly, he barely got to play, so I can't base that off of what he did and didn't do in Philly. I trust Cam Talbot, and I think he'll bounce back, and that team is dynamic offensively. Giordano, one of the certainly will be in the running again this year. Defensively, they're good, but they had some injuries, so it's a little lesser than when we would have counted them a couple months ago based on injuries. So I still think they're good enough, though, and they probably will win the division.
Yes, I agree with that, and it's not a surprise since I agree with that I agree with you about Talbot, and I think he is going to be somebody who, at the very least, is going to hold his own this year. I'm not necessarily going to say a strength of the team, but somebody that's not going to hold them back at the very least. So looking ahead here for the season, and again, you can check out on the main page at fantasydrafthelp.com, Fantasy Hockey Draftology 2019, of course, a joint venture between FantasyDraftHelp.com, the FDH Lounge, and Sportsology. My predictions that I have in here, I will skip ahead to the conference finals. I will say Tampa over Washington in 6, Winnipeg over Calgary in 6, and again, maybe going out on a big limb, but I think this is the year that it happens, that the Cup comes back to Canada. This is the same pick I made a year ago, by the way. Winnipeg over Tampa Bay in 6. I think Patrick Lane comes back huge. He's going to have to, basically, with everything they got going on there. Again, I'm such a strong believer in high-end talent, and those two teams have it in spades, certainly. Winnipeg, I would agree with you. They may seem a little more top-heavy than they were maybe 2 years ago, but to me, they have enough to get it done. I'm going out on that limb. How do you see the finals shaking out this year?
All right, so for the West, I think even without Valimaki, Calgary will get there. I agree with you, but I think they're going to lose to Colorado.
Okay.
I think Colorado is going to come out of the West. As far as the East, I do see a scenario where it's Washington, Tampa as well, and I'm going to go with that. And I'm going to take Washington to come out of that.
Okay.
So Washington, Colorado, and I think it's a Colorado Cup.
Well, that is not something I want to hear as a Red Wings fan. But wow. Well, I don't rule it out. I mean, if their young talent is able to come together and reach that level this year, you could certainly look at last year as being sort of that intermediate type year you take before you make the big jump. So that is, from my point of view, sadly plausible, Russ Cohen.
Well, I mean, you also have to look at Cale Makar. Like, he's really a dynamic talent. He'll be up for the Calder Trophy, and he'll probably be one of the top 15 defensemen in the league by the end of the year. So while Tyson Barrie's really good, I think they'll miss a beat with Makar. So they just have to get some better years so they go up to McKinnon and Rantanen, and that's dynamic, and Landeskog is back. I think the age is right. I think everything's right for them. Well,
very interesting that you and I both have the Cup winner coming out of the Central Division, which is where the defending champion St. Louis comes from, which is where the 2017 Western champion Nashville Predators come from. Earlier in the decade, Chicago Blackhawks 3 times winning the Cup. So the Central, from the point of view of you and I, continues to be a powerhouse, and we both agree will yield this year's champion, even if we don't agree on which team that is. So an excellent breakdown as per always. Thank you for being a part of this, Russ Cohen. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
Excellent. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today for FDH Lounge mini episode number 1153.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, Waitresses, Strippers, Bartenders, Garbage Men, Janitors, Microwave Popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and The Periodic Table of Elements.